નવી લિંક મેમ તમારો ફોન
ઓકે
તમારો ફોન છે
ઓ હા એ જોઈ
we are started
નવી લિંક
હેલો
મેં તો લોકો ફોલો નહીં થાય
હેલો હાય બેટો
જલ્દી હર્ષાંક જવા દે
થેન્ક યુ તને ખબર છે
okay we are done chalo guys best of luck
ઇન્ડિયા હતી ચલ તારા માટે બેસવાનું કંઈ મંગાવ્યું
ના વાંધો નહીં તો અમે અહીંયા એડજસ્ટ કરી લઈશું
જો તો YouTube ની લિંક ખોલો તો કોઈ મોબાઈલ માં પ્લીઝ બેન કુશા ખોલ
તો 15 સેકન્ડ લો હું
કુશાન મોકલી લિંક
That's all right.
કુશા તમ હું કુશા હર્ષાંક સાયકલ કરતા રહીશું
Amazing. Okay, one more thing. આને મારે rotate કેવી રીતે કરવાનું? We view it like this.
આમાં તો તમારું પરફેક્ટ જ આવશે
No.
Okay,
આ છે ને this chart.
સીવી જાય છે આપણે પેલા ચિહ્ન બી
Okay, we rotate this ને.
થઈ
પણ અંદર નહીં થઈ ગયું
હા એટલે I rotate the tab ને.
રાઈટ હા રોટેટ ધ
Okay.
પ્લીઝ કોઈ જોઈ લો ને ઓનલાઈન
આ જોઈશ મારો ફોન
તો હું
નવો પોસ્ટ કરતો
જોઈ જો
જો હવે સીવી જાય આપણે કેટલી વારમાં લાઈવ થઈએ છીએ કેટલી વારમાં લાઈવ થઈએ છીએ પેલા ચિહ્ન બી
પછી આપણને અંડો મળ્યું તો
લાઈવ થઈ ગયા આપણે
ના.
we are
નહીં
live
થઈ ગયું
કઈ નહીં આપણી પાસે ટાઈમ છે હું બીજો નાખી દઉં
we are live
એ that's fine. આ બધા ઓટો રોટેટ થઈ ગયા
વાંધો નહીં એ તમે જ્યારે ઓપન કરશો ને ત્યારે થઈ જશે
એક મિનિટ હર્ષાંક
મેં મોકલ્યો છે એક ગ્રુપમાં
no wait
હા કઈ વાંધો નહીં
રમેશ પછી છે ને હમણાં અડધો
ચિહ્ન
કલાક
બી નતો મેસેજ આવી ગયો યુ આર નોટ વિઝિબલ
એ તો અધીરો માણસ છે પછી આ લોકોની દાબેલી હમણાં અડધો કલાક થાય એટલે એમની બનાવીને રાખશે પછી ગરમ કરીને
પહેલા હા કઈ વાંધો
હા
નહીં
હા હા આઈ નો તું
હર્ષાંક
હાઈપર
I'm so sorry આ છે
કેટલી વારમાં લાઈવ ત્રીજી લિંક પ્લીઝ
I'm so sorry હર્ષાંક
ચિહ્ન બી મેં આજે ફોન કટ કર્યો
okay we are live huh?
અને નવી લિંક મોકલ મને થેન્ક યુ
Suchi, what is the beginning? Thank you for MSAI. Scofi, sorry.
Scomi.
Scomi.
ઉભા રહેજો ને જી
ઇન્ટ્રોડક્શન
okay થઈ ગયું start we are live right
યસ
okay can we increase the volume
Oh shit.
okay don't worry only 2 people are watching right now so
એ મને ચિહ્ન મેસેજ પાઈ
તે તો ખાવા જઈ જશે
good યાર આપણે સરસ દેખાઈ રહ્યા છે
મેમ ઇન્ટ્રોડક્શન આ લખીને આપ્યું છે તમે અહીંયા તમારું નામ બોલજો ખાલી તમને કઈ વચ્ચે એબ્રિવિએશન મને આપો
okay this is how we are looking right now
Oh great.
પરફેક્ટ
બરાબર ને
One of you monitor from here also.
મેમ એટલે
અરે, હા.
એમાં કઈ બધું ફાવે છે ને તમને
Only hitches. મને ક્યાં આ મોટું કર્યા કે મારે ચશ્મા પહેરવા
હું
પડશે
ચશ્મા આપું તમને
ના રહેવા દે ચાલશે Okay. આમાં we will not need the microphone.
no nothing
Okay.
11 થર્સડે છે પીએચવાય એટલે ફિઝિયોલોજી અને એનએમ એટલે ડોક્ટર નીરજનું હોય છે એસએસ એટલે તમે
Okay, I announce. Okay.
stuck up થઈ ગયું
અને નીચેનું છેલ્લું ના બોલતા નાઉ આઈ હેન્ડ ઓવર નાઉ આઈ હેન્ડિંગ ઓવર તો તમે જ બોલો છો
Wait a minute. I have been representing the SMC of So I Sushma Shah.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Please. I hope you're not like that.
બટ લેક્ચર બહુ સરસ થશે એટલે
હા કોશા
મેઇન લેક્ચર છે આપણી માટે બસ
હા.
Shall we go?
કેટલા લાઈક થયા છે કેટલા લાઈક થયા છે
Okay, even I am live.
અરે કેટલા થયા છે તને ખબર પડશે
We can દેખાય two watching right now. Wait. 15-20 લોકો થાય ને પછી ચાલુ કરીએ આપણે.
ના ના એવું
તું MSI ના ગ્રુપ ઉપર વી આર લાઈક નાઉ ડુ જોઈન લખતો થતો
શું કરે
હવે તમને બધું ખબર પડે છે ને વચ્ચે કોઈ એબ્રિવિએશન યુઝ કર્યા છે
No, it's I'm representing Dr.Sushma Shah in representing the XM series of Scomedic
Scomedic monologues of school
monologues of Scomedic. હું એવું કહું
હા તમારે જે
I'm
કહેવું
so happy to welcome you to
હા.
the second in series lecture of the Scomedic monologues of Scomedic. Firstly, I'd like to appreciate your keenness to join despite the technical glitches that you have been experiencing lately. But we assure you that this time you'll have a smooth experience. We've made sure this time. Okay, but just a little notice in advance. The next lecture will be on 11th of May, Thursday. Shall be taken by Dr.
Neeraj Mahajan.
Neeraj Mahajan. And it will be a general overview of the physiology followed by physiology of the cortex. તારો ફોન એરપ્લેન મોડ પર કરી
હેલો ના હવે 2 મિનિટમાં લાઈવ એટલે 1 મિનિટમાં લાઈવ થઈ
We are live already.
એટલે લાસ્ટ લિંક મેં નવી સેન્ડ કરી છે હમણાં એકવાર જ જો ગ્રુપ ઉપર
We are live એમને કે.
શિવી મને
હા, તમે
આમાં મારું મોઢું દેખાવાનું છે
પણ તમને નહીં દેખાય.
નહીં ને
તમને નહીં દેખાય પણ અમને બધાને દેખાશે. તમારે એ કેન્સલ કરવું છે?
હા
ના
ના એ વાળી
હા,
738
સારું
વાળી
લાગે.
738 વાળી તમને નવી લિંક મોકલું છું ઓલા
પણ
ગ્રુપ
તમે લોકો યુ કીપ ટેલિંગ મી ઇફ
હા એ ઓલા ગ્રુપમાં મોકલવાનું બાકી છે બાકી બધા
હા,
MSA
અમે
ઉપર
લોકો
એવી લિંક મોકલાઈ ગઈ છે
હા
બધા ઉપર આવી ગઈ છે હું તમને મોકલવાનું ટ્રાય કરીશ
મેં એમને સેન્ડ કરી
મળી ઓકે ના હવે થઈ ગયું છે અમે કરી દીધું
કોશા
ગોટ
સ્લીપ મોડ
ગોટ ઇટ ગોટ
ખાલી આને બસ
તું તારું એરપ્લેન મોડ કરે ને આ ઓલવાઈ જવાનું છે 12%
હા
છે
એનો વાંધો નહીં આપણે અત્યારે બધી ને પછી કરી દઈશું એનો
ઓકે
કઈ વાળી મને દેખો હા એને હું મોકલી દીધી શાંતિ સાઈને
We are live already. We are actually live. બે જ લોકો વોચ કરે છે currently.
we go on air that's okay.
We are already on air.
હા પણ એટલે we start
Okay, we start ને તો લોકો પણ ચાલુ થાય એટલે ખાલી 3 જ લોકો જોઈ
શિવી
રહ્યા
આવું જ રહેશે
છે. એવું છે?
yeah
ધીરે આવશે
people will join in eventually
હા.
પૂછી લે આને ચિન્મયને કે
ચિન્મયભાઈ
start.
પૂછ્યું?
મારો ફોન નથી થતો
અને મારો ફોન સાયલેન્ટ પર કે એરપ્લેન મોડ કરી દો ને
કરી દો
શું થયું
ચિન્મયભાઈ કે મેં કીધું airplane માં
મને મેસેજ કરજો કે મેમ એવું કહે છે ને કે એરપ્લેન
ચિન્મયભાઈ પ્લીઝ બાલની એ ખાલ ના ઉતારો અત્યારે.
ચલો સિમ્પલ કોઈ બોલું કે
આપણે કેમ પછી છે ને હું બધા ગ્રુપ ઉપર કહું છું કે આપણે લાઈક થઈ ગયા છીએ. અમે કહી દીધું છે પણ હવે બે ચાર વાર મેસેજ કરીશું ને એટલે બધા લાઈક થશે. આવે ને એટલે ઓ
Hello friends, a very good evening to all of you. I, Dr.Sushma Shah, Professor of Gynecology, take great happiness in inviting you to the second of the series lecture on the basis of reproduction of the Scomedic Monologue series arranged by Scomi MSAI. I'd like to appreciate your keenness to join in spite of these technical glitches. I really appreciate your keenness to learn in spite of so many hitches that we've experienced lately. This time we've made sure that you have a beautiful seamless experience, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy this lecture. Also, just a bit of an advance notice, the next lecture of this series will be taken by Dr. Neeraj Mahajan, Professor of Physiology, on 11th of May, this Thursday. So make sure you all log in and take part in that lecture as well. Let me remind you that this is an interactive lecture. We have links open, and you're all welcome to bring forth your doubts and your difficulties. I'll try to address them either during the course of this lecture or maybe at the end of the lecture. Wish you all happy viewing. So, we go on to the basis of reproduction. A little bit of recap. Those who are with us in the last lecture will remember this diagram. Here is, Shibi, please turn on beta. This is just a brief recap. Here we are looking at the uterine cycle. We learnt in our last lecture that the menstrual cycle is nothing but a regular shedding and regeneration of the endometrium, which takes place in the female after the onset of menarche till the onset of menopause, which is about a period of 15 to 45 years of age. This is also called the period of active reproductive life. Now, this is a cyclical phenomenon, and it is an outward representation of many cycles taking place otherwise. So here we have the ovarian cycle. This is the ovarian cycle, the forming of the Graafian follicle from a primordial follicle. If you all remember that the ovarian cycle begins in the first stage, that is the stage of the primordial follicle, which under the influence of various pituitary hormones undergoes growth and maturation to form a primary follicle, then a preantral follicle, then this antral follicle. Eventually, by day 14 of a regular cycle, it undergoes ovulation, hence forming of the corpus luteum, functioning of the corpus luteum till about 21st, 22nd day of the cycle, and in the absence of a pregnancy, degeneration and eventual non-functioning of the corpus luteum, forming the corpus albicans. Now, all these ovarian changes are reflected here in the endometrium as, let's recapitulate. We understand the endometrial cycle from day 1 to day. Here is day 1 of the menstrual cycle, day 28 in a standard menstrual cycle being the last day of the menstrual cycle. So, day 1 is the day of beginning of the periods, or the day of the beginning of the bleeding the woman or the girl experiences. The first 5 to 7 days are called the period of menstruation or bleeding. During this time, there is a continuous degeneration and regeneration of the endometrium taking place. Here you can see the shedding of the endometrium of the previous cycle, simultaneously forming and growth of the new endometrium of the current cycle is taking place. Um, then this endometrium from day 1 to day 14 continues to grow, and this is the phase we call as the proliferative phase. This is the follicular phase happening in the ovary. Here we call it the proliferative phase of the endometrium. Day 1 to day 14 is the proliferative phase. Day 14 is the day when the ovum separates from the Graafian follicle. That is also the day of ovulation. At the day of ovulation and after therewards, the endometrium becomes the secretory endometrium. This is also called the secretory phase of the endometrial cycle. During this time, the active secretion takes place from these endometrial glands. These secretions are very, very important to nourish the implanting embryo if fertilization has taken place. In the absence of fertilization, there is no signal for this endometrium to continue its function, and eventually the endometrium degenerates. Now, this is the basic of the endometrial cycle. How does this endometrial cycle take place? How is it regulated? How is it maintaining its periodicity? So today we are going to understand the hormonal changes that take place in the body of the female, which eventually regulate this menstrual cycle. Let us all recapitulate one more thing. We all know that the basic endometrium, the basic reproductive system, consists of the reproductive tract itself. That is, Usha, can you help me? Beta, we are not. This is the uterus and the cervix, the fallopian tubes, the ovaries, right? The cervix opening into the vagina. This is the reproductive tract per se. These are the fimbria. Now, there is something else also regulating. There is the higher control from the anterior pituitary, which is in turn regulated or commanded by the hypothalamus. Earlier, we used to think that the pituitary is the seat of all regulations, but now we know that the master control lies at the level of the hypothalamus, and hence any situation, any state of the mind or the body which can influence the working of hypothalamus has a direct effect on the working of the menstrual cycle. So indirectly, I mean to say that the state of mind, stress, hunger, deprivation, grief, all this can be reflected into the functioning and irregularities seen in the menstrual cycle, as well as irregularity of the ovulation, which is primarily the function of the ovary, right? So now we know that the hypothalamus sends signal to the anterior pituitary. These signals reach the ovary, and this ovary again sends biological signals which work on the endometrial lining of the uterus. Now let us understand what are these signals. The hypothalamus releases a chemical or an endocrine signal. It is a hormone which is peptide in nature. Means so this is a peptide hormone which is called GnRH. H. Alright, so but then why GnRH? Because this ovary secretes FSH, sorry, the pituitary, the anterior and the posterior parts of the pituitary. Anterior pituitary is the main lobe of pituitary in connection with the reproductive system. It has two main hormones, the FSH and the LH. Now, these two together are called gonadotropes. These enter the bloodstream and act on the ovary to cause the ovary to perform its two main functions. One of the functions being development of the follicle and development of the ovum or the primary oocyte and its release. To its endocrine function being the secretion or production of estrogen and progesterone. So the two basic hormones of reproduction are estrogen and progesterone. They are under direct control of the pituitary via FSH and the LH. Now this pituitary is under the control of the hypothalamus. There is a hypophysioportal circulation. If you can remember your anatomy of the CNS system, through these hypophyseal portal tracts, you have these polypeptides, which is now called GnRH. So you know where this GN comes from? GN is gonadotropin, R releasing H hormone. So this GnRH is a decapeptide. So it's a polypeptide having 10 monomers of peptides, and this forms the chemical signal which induces the FSH and LH secretions of the anterior pituitary. Now, FSH is the hormone which is primarily active during the follicular phase. That is, yes, let's look at this one. Here, these are the pituitary hormones. These are the ovarian hormones, right? So, under the constant pulsatile release of GnRH, the pituitary responds by secreting the follicular stimulating hormone, which is the primary and the main hormone during the folliculogenesis. That is the first phase or the proliferative phase of the cycle. The FSH is the main hormone. Let's see here. So, if you trace this, this is the FSH which peaks in the mid-follicular phase, that is around 7th to 8th day of the cycle. Under the effect of FSH, two events happen in the ovary. Sorry, this FSH, okay, a little bit of recap with the ovarian follicle. The ovarian follicle consists of the ovum, which is the primary oocyte, which is also the primary germ cell. Around that is a layer of the granulosa cells, which are condensations from the ovarian cortex. The outer cells of this are called the theca cells. These are the theca cells of the ovary, these being the granulosa cells. Now, this FSH acts primarily on the granulosa cells, whereas LH acts primarily on the lutein cells. The theca cells produce androgens from the acetates via the pregnenolone pathway. Now this is called a two-cell hypothesis. The theca cells are not capable of producing estrogens, whereas the granulosa cells have the aromatase enzyme which eventually converts the androgens into the estrogen or the estradiol, which is the main hormone of the follicular phase. So under the effect of LH, the theca cells secrete androgens. These androgens cross over into the granulosa cells. From the granulosa cells, these hormones, the androgens, are taken up, and by the action of the enzyme aromatase, it is converted into estrogen. Now, this estrogen again is liberated via the blood. It goes back to the pituitary, and it also goes to the endometrium. So, if this is the ovary, this is the endometrium, and this is the pituitary. The pituitary secretes FSH. Under the effect of this FSH, there is secretion of estrogen. This estrogen goes to the endometrium and causes the proliferation of the endometrium. This estrogen also reaches the anterior pituitary and it causes a negative feedback, thus reducing the FSH levels. Now, by the time the FSH level drops, that is day 5 to 7 of the ovarian cycle. Now, at a time when the ovary starts producing Graafian follicles, it's not just one follicle that begins its action. In the ovary, there are at about 4 to 450 primordial follicles, and every cycle about 10 to 12 primordial follicles begin development under the effect of FSH. All the 12 of them are not going to ovulate. Only one of them is going to become the ovulatory follicle, and this is called the dominance. Only one follicle is going to be the dominant follicle, and this dominant follicle is eventually going to ovulate. The rest of the follicles are eventually going to become atretic. By day 5 to 7 of the ovarian cycle, this dominant follicle has been selected. So, when the levels of FSH fall, this follicle will not stop growing, but the other follicles will gradually go into atresia. This now growing follicle will continue to secrete more and more estrogen. This estrogen will continue to go into anterior pituitary and it will eventually decrease the FSH production. Now let's go back to this original picture. If you remember this, see here this green line is the estrogen, but this blue line here, there is a continuous secretion of LH. This LH is responsible for secretion of the theca lutein cells. Now, what happens when this estrogen gives a negative feedback to FSH? It also gives a positive feedback to LH. And when this estrogen levels reach a certain peak, that is about 100 to 200 picogram per ml, it induces a sudden rise of the LH, which we understand as the LH surge. Now, if you look here, this LH is continuously going as a basal level, and suddenly there is this peak where it goes as high as 100 to 200 times. This is called the LH surge and the LH peak, and this LH surge is the main reason behind ovulation. If for any reason this FSH does not decrease, this estrogen does not go on to the adequate required levels to trigger this LH surge, you will never see ovulation in that cycle. And in that cycle, it becomes an anovulatory cycle, which is then the cause of multiple menstrual disorders. Now, in the occurrence of this LH surge, there is liberation of ovum from the well-formed Graafian follicle. This LH surge is also responsible for completion of the first meiotic division of the primary oocyte. Um, well, let's take a small recap here. If you all remember, there is something called mitosis and there is called meiosis. What is mitosis? Mitosis is a type of cell division where the total number of chromosome is continued. So in normal human cell, there is 2n or number of chromosome. In the daughter cell, both daughter cell contain 2n number. That is 23 pairs, and the daughter cells also receive 23 pairs each. That is mitosis. What happens in meiosis? Meiosis is a special type of cell division which is restricted to the reproductive organelles. Here, the main parent cell has 2n chromosomes, that is 23 pairs of chromosomes, and the daughter cells will have just a single chromosome, that is 23 and 23. So in case it is a female, it will be 22XX. The daughter will be, sorry, that will be 44XX, and the daughter cell will be 22X and it will be 22X. In the case of a male, it is a 44XY. So the daughter cells or the spermatids will have 23X and will 22X and 22Y. So basically there is halving. The number of chromosomes become half. This is the main characteristic of the meiotic division. Let's understand, why should meiosis at all happen? Suppose meiosis does not happen. What will you have? You have 46 plus 46. So the new cell will have 24n chromosomes, which is not compatible with life. That is why in the process of sexual reproduction, the number of chromosome becomes half, so that when the two reproductive cells meet, that is an ovum and sperm meet, both have 22x. This will have 22x or 22y. When they meet and they fertilize, the resulting cell, or which is the zygote or the single cell of the newborn baby, will have again 23 pairs, right? Out of them there will be 222 autosomes, and depending on the characteristics of the sperm, it will be either XY making a male child, or it can be a XX, which will result in a female child. So coming back to our ovulation, so here there is a completion of this first meiotic division, and the ovum which is released is now ready for fertilization. Now at this point of time, in the fallopian tube of the female, that is, if a recent coitus has occurred and a good number of sperms, if at that point of time, are available in the fallopian tube, and if these sperms are successful in penetrating this ovum and they result into fertilization, there will be the formation of a zygote and there will be formation of a trophoblast. In that case, this trophoblast or this new zygote will secrete its chemical signal, which is called the HCG. This HCG is the signal of the zygote to the ovary to continue to secrete the progesterone from the corpus luteum. In the absence of fertilization, there is no corpus luteum, and in that case, it will develop into an atretic corpus luteum and it will eventually degenerate. But before it eventually degenerates, the corpus luteum secretes progesterone as its main hormone. Now, if you follow this here, under the effect of FSH, the main hormone secreted from the ovary was the estradiol, and a small amount of progesterone was also secreted. After ovulation, this Graafian follicle now becomes the corpus luteum, the main hormone of the corpus luteum being the progesterone, which is a progestational hormone. This name itself suggests that it is progestation. So it favors gestation. Gestation means pregnancy. This is the main hormone for continuation and protection of pregnancy, and this corpus luteum secretes now progesterone in a high amount and estrogen in a basal amount so as to ensure the implantation of this zygote if it reaches. In case there is no implantation, here there is a fall of the estrogen and progesterone, and because of the fall of the estrogen progesterone, there is nothing to sustain this endometrium, and this endometrium starts shedding again. What happens into the anterior pituitary after ovulation? Now, there was this sudden LH surge. Okay. Was this LH surge, and again it comes to a basal level. This LH continues to stimulate the corpus luteum, and this corpus luteum in turn secretes progesterone as a predominant as a higher level and estrogen as a baseline level. This progesterone reaches the endometrium and causes endometrium, which are now called secretory changes, and that is why this endometrium is now called a secretory endometrium. The main thing being these endometrial glands that we see now become active, functional, and they start secreting, which is very rich in nourishment of the embryo and the zygote. Because as we all know, if there is a zygote, that is the newly formed mass of the new baby, it is not in direct connection with the maternal circulation. So then where does it get its nutrition, its oxygen, and its excretion from? Suppose this zygote has formed, it will come and embed, that is, it will bury itself into this endometrium. This burying will cause disruption and breaking of this endometrium, releasing blood and fluids from this. This is the secretory endometrium. Zygote will come and bury itself, and this released fluid, this blood, will be responsible for nourishment of this embryo till it develops its own placenta, its own vasculature, and its own exchange of gases and nutrients with the maternal blood system. Till then, this endometrium continues to nourish this embryo, and that is why this secretory change is very important. If some problem happens in the secretory phase, suppose there is ovulation, suppose there is fertilization, there is a formation of zygote, and this zygote comes and implants itself into this endometrium. But due to any other reason, if this endometrium is not ready or not capable of supporting this embryo, it will eventually result into an abortion. So we understand how important it is for the secretory change to happen. Now, what maintains these secretory changes? Coming back to the same figure again, this progesterone is responsible for maintaining this endometrium in its role as a nourisher of the endometrium. This is not rotating, beta.
No, it won't rotate. It should rotate.
Yeah. So this secretory transformation is very, very crucial to the pregnancy. Now, if there is no embryo, no implantation, and no HCG signal, there is nothing. This progesterone goes back to the anterior pituitary, just as we had estrogen feedback. This is the ovary, this is the anterior pituitary. We had the estrogen feedback to the anterior pituitary. We also have a progesterone feedback to the anterior pituitary. Now, rising progesterone level in the absence of HCG will cause a fall in the LH levels. And the fall of this LH will then, this fall of LH will cause an eventual fall in the progesterone level. No estrogen, no progesterone supporting this endometrium, and this endometrium will undergo ischemia. These coiled vessels will undergo intense vasospasm, hence restricting the amount of oxygenation of this endometrium. This endometrium will not get its oxygen supply. As a result of this, there will be a destruction, there will be a lysis, and there will be shedding of this endometrium, hence beginning a new cycle of menstruation. So, to recapitulate, in the beginning, there is an increase of the FSH from the pituitary. This FSH goes to the ovary, causes development of the Graafian follicle, and the primordial follicle now develops into the primary follicle. Primary follicle continues to form the well-matured Graafian follicle. Now in the pre-ovulatory stage, that is on day 13 or day 12, day 13 of the ovarian cycle, this Graafian follicle reaches a size of 20 mm, that is 1.8 to 2 centimeters in size. When you see this picture on the transvaginal scan of the ovary, you understand that this Graafian follicle is now ready to ovulate. At that time, if there is an endogenous LH surge, in some women, this endogenous LH surge does not happen, like in girls with PCOS, which we will eventually learn in our subsequent lectures. Suppose there is no endogenous LH surge. If you give HCG from an external source, you can induce ovulation, and this ovulation can then proceed on to fertilization. This is one of the therapies used in PCO women to cure their infertility. So, either endogenous or exogenous LH will cause ovulation. At ovulation, now this Graafian follicle becomes, it is now called corpus luteum, primarily secreting progesterone in huge amounts and estrogen in baseline amounts. So here, this purple line is the progesterone, which is now peaking, and the peak is progesterone is seen around day 21 of the menstrual cycle. Day 21-22 endometrium is the optimal endometrium for implantation, and hence if implantation occurs at this point, there is a very good chance of pregnancy going on to become a full-fledged viable full-term pregnancy. Now suppose at this stage, if there is sudden drop in the progesterone, or if this progesterone does not reach adequate levels, we call this thing as a LPD. It is called the luteal phase defect. If this is not corrected, it may end up again with an early abortion. So how do you correct this luteal phase defect? We know, according to physiology, that the main hormone required at this point of time is progesterone. The body is not capable, or for some reason, it is not secreting adequate amounts of progesterone. What can we do? We can give progesterone externally. You can supplement progesterone. It can help to maintain the endometrium, and it can help continuation. It can salvage this pregnancy. Going on, if there is a this thing, then there is an HCG signal. This HCG signal goes on to the corpus luteum. It continues the secretion and it prevents atresia of the corpus luteum. This corpus luteum has, in absence of HCG, has a life of about 10 days. In the presence of the HCG, this corpus luteum can extend its function to about 10 to 12 weeks of pregnancy. By 10 to 12th week of pregnancy, the trophoblast has now effectively formed a placenta, and this placenta gradually takes over the work of nourishing the embryo and being a medium of transport between the mother and the the newly developing fetus. In the absence of the HCG signal, this LH also falls, the FSH also falls, and in the absence of estrogen progesterone, there is shedding of this endometrium. So this is in general the endometrial cycle, the ovarian cycle, and its hormonal regulation. That is all for today, and if you all have any doubts or any questions, you're welcome to put your questions, which we can address right now. I guess we do not have many questions. In that case, from all of us here, it's a very big thank you to all of you from us here, Ahmedabad. Wish you a very good night. Cut, cut.